This conference will now be recorded.
Okay. So, what we have discussed previous call, we have discussed many things. Among them, I want to start with the name of the work stream. So we have decided to go with the name Immersion Cooling Challenges. So instead of hurdles, we want to put challenges. This is the like evaluation that people don't want to see to hurdles, and instead of that challenges, and how we realize that challenges and resolve them. So this is the first thing. Next thing is about the questionnaire. It is almost ready. We will send that to the mailing list, and if there is no any adjustments, we will push that forward. Also, we have talked about the new work streams which we want to set up. Just a moment. Fluids life cycle model. Is here anyone who can talk about that? If no, we will move forward. So next one is about PFAS issue. What we want to know is to update about the existing situation. Is anyone who work with two-phase immersion cooling and know any new things about that? Anyone?
Yeah, this is Nick. We
I,
probably can contribute.
maybe you can say a few words about that, and I will put that here in the slide.
Well, I think let us come back to you with something
But,
that we can include.
Nick, can you make a short introduction, because which company you present?
Yeah, I'm with Liquid Stack. Me and
Okay.
Tom Frankel, I think, on this call. Yeah.
Yes, yes. So, Liquid Stack, I know that you have a great experience in two-phase cooling, but now you continue working with 3M, or you already start to switching to something new one and testing, or it is not yet defined?
Yeah, I mean there are other companies out there besides 3M, so yeah, we're
So,
looking at other companies too.
so I can write that uh, here, that exploring alternative uh, for free and Novik. That's fine.
Hmm.
Okay. But the technology itself is not changing, right? You are just looking for the fluid issue.
I think there's a lot happening with this topic in general, and there's certainly some lobbying going on. So there's a lot of activity in general around PFAS that we're involved with either directly or indirectly. But so yeah, some of those activities are lobbying. Some of those activities having to do with exploring alternate vendors. But so there's multiple things that, yeah, that are
And another question is regarding the technology itself. So LiquidStack is like a still two-phase immersion cooling solution, right? There is no a single-phase alternative for that from LiquidStack.
Yeah, this time we have the two-phase offers that that we are promoting. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks very much, Nick, for the update. Anyone else who can give some update about PFAS issue with two-phase immersion cooling?
David, can you hear me?
Yes, chat. Hello.
I did see on the 3M website a day or two back that they were promoting a replacement called, I think, Best Technology. So I can't speak. We only do single phase, but
So you were saying that 3M provide replacement for Novec for PFAS?
yeah, Best Technology is what they were saying. Best Solve, BESTSOLV. I'm not an expert. I have no knowledge other than what I saw on the 3M website. Perhaps Nick can opine on that, or maybe we can get some 3M or other two-phase fluid people on the call.
Do you have a link? If you can put that in the chat, I will put that in this slide.
I got a link right here.
Or later.
Yeah.
It's okay. Thank you, chat, for this information. Maybe someone else also have something to say about PFAS issue for today.
The other thing I mentioned earlier is, there's certainly some lobbying going on. Industry partners are contributing to deal with the proposal in front of ECHA right now within the European community. So there's some activity there. I think we're about halfway through the 6-month hearing, after which there will be sort of a proposal put for, or a decision on the proposal that was put forward. So that's happening now.
Do you want that write that in one sentence? Can you formulate that?
Yeah, in terms of just an update, I would say that we're halfway through the 6-month proposal period for the European REACH agreement.
So
yeah, halfway through the 6-month hearing.
6 months. 6 months. What?
Hearing, HEARING.
It's much better if you will put that in the chat, and I will copy paste. Is that okay, Nick, for you?
Yeah, no problem.
Great. So we have just information from Nick, who represent LiquidStack about the what is happening. We will put that in the slide. Some update from a chat from Liquid Cool Solution, which provide the link for 3M site. And I think this is some real information from the market which can be evaluated by our community.
I'm sorry, I think I missed some great content by being 15 minutes late into the call.
Hi, Rolf. Yes, we just.
Can you give me the 10-second summary, maybe?
Yes. So I just mentioned that we changed the name of hurdles to challenges, immersion cooling challenges. Another thing is that now we're discussing the PFAS issue, and we have some update from Nick, his representative of LiquidStack. So right now they are exploring the alternatives for 3M Novec, and Chad from LiquidStack
Fantastic.
said that 3M provides replacement for Novec, and this is the link where you can find this alternative for Novec.
Nice.
And also Nick will put one comment about the existing situation in Europe, right, Nick?
Yeah, that's correct. I'm sending that through the chat now.
Yes, so he will put that in the chat, and we will put also that in the slide. And I think that for today about the PFAS issue, it will be enough, I think. If no one else want to add something more.
It sounds like you just had a scoop.
What?
A scoop? Hot news?
Well, yes, I think so, because I know that PFAS two-phase immersion have a lot attention, especially from after that PFAS issue. So just a moment, I will bring the same format. So you see that? So currently halfway through 6-month hearing for PFAS regulation, reach agreement proposed under HA. Nick, if you want, you can just repeat one more for all what it's mean from business point of view.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So you're asking for clarification on the proposal?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, as I guess as many of you know, there was a proposal put forth under ECHA for basically a PFAS ban, or I think it's a PFAS ban, and it will ultimately be being positioned as a PFAS regulation under the EU REACH agreement. And so there's like a 6-month hearing that started a few months ago, where industry partners are providing context and use cases and different examples and data about various PFAS chemicals. There's over 10,000 different chemicals in the industry. Some of them related to the data center industry. But anyways, we're about halfway through that period right now where there's this hearing, and after the conclusion of this hearing, we would expect some sort of the hearing will be closed, and then ultimately there will be a decision or some regulation or something that would come from all the proposals or all of the petitions put forward.
Mm-hmm. Nick, by the way, this PFAS regulation is touch not only two-phase immersion, right? It's also touch some refrigerants for air conditioning, conventional air conditioning, right?
Yeah, it applies to, right. It probably applies to anything that's fluorocarbon based.
Okay. So it's issue of the whole industry, and we are looking what will be there. Okay.
Yeah, so there's actually FEP insulation used on cabling that's very inert in immersion cooling fluids that might end up being covered by this. So if you go through like our material compatibility, you'll see FEP insulation as one of the things that happens in cables.
Okay. So you want to say that it's also make effect on the insulation of the cables which we use in immersion?
Well, it's an expensive solution to material compatibility, but yeah.
Okay. So we can put that also in
Yeah, I put that in the
our
chat, what I
yes.
said.
Yes, great. Just a second. Okay, great. Okay, nice. So next thing which I want to touch, and we started that previous call, is about the map of immersion cooling installations. So actually, it comes to me when we start to find some installations in Germany, and Rolf yesterday on European community call give us 2 points where already used immersion cooling, but overall we have the same approach in heat reuse work stream, where we have the map and we see their installations of the data centers which make heat reuse, and it's mean that people can go and see how it works and learn and make that again and again. So the same can be done for immersion, because in this heat reuse map, we find out that there is some projects with immersion which make an heat reuse. So I want to create the same, but dedicated for immersion, because as we will show the benefits in reality, where we can invite people, they can come and see, and they can understand that it is not only for the some countries, but it can work worldwide. That will bring recognition of the immersion cooling. So this is why I think it's important to show your experience, show your installations, show the possibility of getting support in that or other country from immersion cooling providers. So is there any thoughts about that? What you think? Is it easy to get that information about the projects and put them on the map, or there is some challenges with that? Please share your thoughts.
I think it's a great idea. One of the things I'll say that we've run into is a lot of times customers are protective of their secret sauce, if you will. It's been challenging to perhaps open up or to pinpoint where these installations are and to open them up to customers or visitors and things like that for privacy reasons. But I mean, I think it's a great idea, just kind of what we've noticed.
Yes, Nick, I understand that, but even if the provider of the solution will say that, yes, we have customers in, let's say, in this country, it will be enough to have a call from the same country client. So there can be not deep information about the kilowatts, about the kind of servers. We don't need that. We just need to show how much projects is realized overall. So if you can show the project, not mention the owner of this project, I mean real customer, and just show some numbers, it will be great. But however, if customer don't want to show anything, even the country, it will not appear on the map. So we are talking about the projects which we can just name. And the next step, of course, is the projects where a provider of the solution can invite the customers, like a showcase. In this case, of course, it's better to have the customer which is, let's say, are able to provide once per 2 months or 3 months people to see that installations. Okay, so I will put here that provide a link to the map to community to fill up. So as we will see the producer installations, then we will recognize like I will say the most interesting partner who have worldwide presence and etc. But and that will be interesting because some companies are US oriented, some are European, and some companies have improvements in Asia. But however, I think this map will bring us many interesting points. Okay. So next thing which we touch in previous call but not develop is the challenges on data hall layout, the reference design, and other in the greenfield or and brownfield installation. Anything about that? Someone want to talk about this? Chad, Mustafa,
David, are you differentiating between data hall layout and transition to immersion from air? Because I might contend that the data hall layout is actually easier.
Yes.
So,
yes.
This refers to a discussion that took place on LinkedIn following one of the articles that I published around potential hurdles or challenges for immersion cooling in the industry. And the argument here was that, hey, compared to traditional air cooling, mixing that with liquid cooling technologies, a lot of the liquid cooling technologies, in particular immersion, come with fundamentally different form factors, which will have an effect, which will have an impact on data hall planning and the layout of a data hall, where currently data halls are primarily designed with hot and cold aisle separation and strict lines. Well, yeah, of course, raised floors, but also in terms of a fairly logical, straightforward layout of rows that are based on traditional rack footprints. And that now suddenly needs to be mixed with different types of footprints, different forms and different shapes, different sizes, with different axis angles. And that may pose a challenge for the current simplicity of data hall planning because of the varying means of getting access to maintenance sensitive components or even extracting service. Think of very obvious things that I'm sure that every immersion party has run into. The height of the cable ducts, where they may be too low for extracting servers effectively from a tank, because suddenly you need additional height just to be able to extract the server, as well as with some solutions you may need to access the rear of a tank as well, which may prevent back-to-back positioning. You cannot separate the air environment around rows of tanks. So these are, personally, I don't think these are critical downsides or hurdles, but it's something that needs to be addressed in terms of providing guidance on facility planning, especially for retrofit environments.
I agree with you, Rolf, and I also try to explain to customers that.
May I say something? Probably in Greenfield, you can do something much easier because you are providing the requirement that you need for immersion to the customer, and the customer will see all the specification you are saying that has to be compliant in the data center, in the data room. Sorry. For example, those that are are already mentioned by Rolf.
Yes. But when we talk about immersion cooling, in comparison with air cooling, we don't need hot and cold house. So this space will be used.
I'm not totally agree.
Why?
Because in some cases you will need some devices that are not ready for immersion to be included into the room. Or probably
I agree with that. Yeah.
Correct.
Yes, but
so then probably you will have a section in the current data center. You also do a planification for heavy devices and more demanding of power, and then you put in some section where you are distributing the power in a section where you have more switching boards or more circuit or whatever, and also you are distributing the most heavy devices you have in other area, or distributing around a specific area where you know that is feasible to release, to remove, or to put them, or bringing in or bringing out from the room. And in this case, I believe at the moment that we still have, we will need to have some air cool racks inside the room, but probably in a section, in a separate section of the room. So you have in a rows, several rows with an immersion solution, and then in other side of the room you have racks that are made for air cooling solution.
Yes, I'm fine with that, and I understand that. But I mean, when we create the hall for immersion, dedicated for only immersion, and compare that with air cooling, we will have more lines, rows with the immersion tanks than with free space.
Yeah, the problem with this argument, David, is that you're making the assumption that an end user will very likely choose a deployment with one style of solution and deploy that in series.
That is correct.
Well, the reality is that hey, immersion is great, and I'm going to say something that maybe not everybody will like me saying, but I'm going to say it anyway. Immersion doesn't solve everything. It's part of an ecosystem. So the more likely deployment types we're going to see are mixes of air, direct-to-chip, and immersion being part of the same platform. And within the immersion space, you're going to have different immersion solutions operating alongside each other, where, for example, you may see an AI super high dense GPU system in a two-phase tank with a more generic workload deployed in a single-phase tank alongside a cold plate deployment for something else, and a door heat exchanger for the storage enclosure that is combined with that entire platform.
Okay.
That's how I see the industry evolving, and that type of variation, which is likely to occur, because currently I don't believe that there are so many deployments with exclusive immersion, simply because it's impractical and also inefficient to do so, simply because there's too many issues with cable management or storage arrays, which are notoriously more difficult to deal with in an immersed environment. And they are it makes much more sense to put it in racks. So therefore, the same data hall will see coexistence of these different types of deployment types, therefore dealing with different form factors and different deployment types within the same room.
My point is probably close to Rolf's argument, but what I'm saying that the greenfield rooms will be based on the needs, not the requirement from immersion. So meaning that if you need a how do you say this, a raised floor, then the raised floor has to be prepared to be able to support a large weight, a heavy weight of immersion solution, and also be prepared that you will have water coming in and coming out from the room. So that is something that is not a standard. So when you talk with some guy from a data center and say you will say, no, you will need to put water in your data room. They will say, what? So this is not something standard for them. So
correct.
So this is something that you have to put as a requirement, and then as a requirement in a greenfield will be easily sorted out. But in brownfield, it's gonna be a challenge. Yes.
So we have to appreciate the complexity that we're bringing in, even though we may not see this as complexity ourselves, because I think most people that are in this call and in the immersion calls in general are already out-of-the-box thinkers who are used to think a bit broader than the traditional approach for data center hall filling. But during the design phase of a data center, racks are already planned into a facility in a certain way to facilitate a certain amount of capacity. And by bringing in the different form factors of immersion solutions, you're disrupting that original planning of a facility, which may have been made 5 or 10 years ago even, but based on standard rack sizes and deployment methods, which we're now trying to change. And that's I personally don't see that as an issue if I were to be in charge, but I know for a fact that a lot of facilities are struggling with the idea of dealing with something different, just a different size coming in, something that was pre-planned to accommodate very specific rack sizes and deployment schematics for cabling and junction points and everything else.
Rolf, I want to share the case of the customer, small scale, which want to have just 50 kilowatt server room, and to deploy that server room with all this cooling, redundancy, and etc., UPS rooms, and etc. He had the offer from the integrator to create that, and he compared that room, IT room creation in his building with the tank, immersion tank, which fill up with all the servers which you need and cover his let's say 20 kilowatt needs. And when he compared that, he realized that the immersion cooling itself is much cheaper. So this is the case when, if we look comprehensive, yes. And a particular client needs even small scale, it is much easier to deploy.
From facilities point of view, probably is much easier.
Yes, but so
I agree with that, David. But let's take a completely different type of industry. Let's have a look at parking garages, parking lots. Parking lots are sized for specific dimensions of personal vehicles.
Yes.
That can fit on a parking space. Now suddenly somebody comes out with a double wide car that is less deep, but it wants to have access to the same parking garages, even though all the parking garages around the world are sized for the current standard size dimensions of personal vehicles. Now that is a big thing. So if you're an operator of such a parking lot and you have the ability to change the entry and to change the layout of your parking spots, and you're easy about it, I mean, that's great. And yes, especially in smaller environments, you can easily accommodate this. But when you are deployed at scale and planned for a specific size of deployments, even though it's something that can be accommodated, it is perceived as something that is disruptive for their way of running their facilities. So I think we should be able to recognize that. I'm not saying, like I said, I'm not saying that I personally would necessarily agree with that point of view, because I think, especially in data center halls, you can be a lot more flexible. But given the fact that a lot of data halls are already outfitted for a specific deployments of racks, a specific rollout of racks over many years, it is something that we're going to have to recognize as a potential hurdle for end-use facilities.
Okay.
And that's really the point. I don't disagree with anything that you're saying regarding the added value of immersion. To the contrary, I really endorse that. But we're talking about an industry that simply wasn't planning for it when they built the facilities.
Yes, only thing about this case that the customer free looking for this immersion cooling. So he come to the other customer, see that 3 years ago, and only after 3 years he make his decision to switch to for him. So it's take a time. Okay, so anything else about challenges data holdout? Should I put something more?
Just one I wanted to just mention. When we talk about brownfield, so when we say greenfield, it's pretty understood, right? But brownfield, there are, I guess, two instances, right? If you're already running a data center and you decide you want to upgrade one rack at a time, which a lot of people are doing, when they're not familiar, they just want to have a couple GPUs running or something like that when they're trying to introduce AI modeling or something to their facility. It's just one or two racks they want to upgrade at a time, and they may consider liquid cooling. The other case is when you're going to decommission a series of racks, and you decide, okay, well, instead of replacing them all, we'll just try to condense it with something like immersion. So in that case, if you're going to decommission a row or something like that, then the challenges with the data whole layout are pretty straightforward because you have a lot more room. But if you're upgrading one rack at a time in a brownfield setting, then it gets kind of complex, right? So you'll have to consider things like weight, at least from the facility side, things like weight. If you're going to run higher voltage or higher wattage ITE, then the cable sizes and whether or not they can actually fit be routed into the space. You have piping if you're going to bring facility water or some kind of coolant to the system. You have the space. So I think when you're considering brownfield, those are two cases we kind of have to tease out, right? If it's rack by rack, there are certain complexities you have to deal with, and if it's replacement of legacy equipment, you may have a lot more freedom in that case.
Jabari, thanks for chiming in on that. I would suggest this community never use the word brownfield, because everything that we do is green, and I would contend it's greenfield or retrofit. Brownfield, when we're talking with chief financial officers, and I come from the financial world, it has to do with remediating environmental hazards, oil and dirt, and all sorts of super fun sites. Brownfields are nothing we want to talk about. What we're doing is either a greenfield, a new build, or a retrofit. And why we use the word brownfield in any of our documents puzzles me a little bit.
Hi, Chad. I agree with the sentiment. The thing is that the data center industry is littered with terminology like brownfield. I completely agree where you're coming from when it comes from when you're dealing with the oil and gas industry. But it's something that is very difficult to get out of the entire industry simply because the data center industry is simply referring to brownfield and greenfield facilities. So it's a very broadly accepted term, right? So it's going to be difficult to move away from that.
Can we say brownfield / retrofit?
I'm happy. I've started because you made this comment before a couple calls back, or even a couple months back, and I personally started using retrofit a bit more. But the industry itself just still deals with will be dealing with the term brownfield for quite some time. But I'm perfectly happy for us within OCP to use the term retrofit a bit more. But yeah. But brownfields in data center terminology doesn't necessarily involve retrofitting.
Sure. I guess one other thing I'll share with you, Rolf, and this is, well, we're one community and we're taking on Goliath. So for what it's worth, I personally think pursuing business, chasing energy managers and sustainability officers may be quicker and easier than CIOs and CTOs who are risk averse. And unfortunately, I hear you, Rolf, thank you for the feedback on the brownfield stuff. But when I'm talking to environmental types and sustainability officers and energy managers, brownfield, just so it's good to know, because this document, I suppose, is mostly presented towards the CIO and CTO community versus more of the environmental sustainability types, but food for thought anyhow.
I want to just add something to Jabari question or comments, that when we start in data center adding the immersion cooling, which need higher grade water to cool down, but we have only one installation, so most reasonable thing is just to connect to existing chilled water loop, which is cooled by chillers. So have lower, but we can start with something. It will be just cost of connections. But when we grow up and have more capacity on immersion cooling, then we can dedicate separate loop, which will be connected to not to the chilled water from the chillers, but for the dry cooler or adiabatic cooler. And this is what this is why I want to go to the real experience sharing. So how we can do this transition by connecting to the existing liquid line, water line, and after by growing, shift to another loop with more efficient cooling. What do you think? Is it a way for the retrofit? Hello?
So I guess what's the question exactly? What's the difference between the retrofit and the previous slide, the experience?
And to be honest, I feel comfortable using greenfield and brownfield because it's something that I was living in my previous roles in IT, and also in data center, and also in facilities. Because if you talk of retrofit, seems to be something for as a singular item that you will do some modification. That's my point.
Yeah, but I guess we use retrofit more because, and certainly, you know, Liquid Cool is not the only outfit that does rack based. You got ICO-Tip. I think Liquid Stack does some rack based as well. So literally for us, we are retrofitting a rack of gear and yanking out air cooled stuff and putting immersion servers in that rack. Which, you know, I recognize this community is a broad community and totally agree with Rolf that there will never be one right solution. There's some great things about tanks that racks just can't do. So, or rear door or anything else. But to be honest, the other thing I think about retrofit versus conversion. A lot of things we're doing right now, I think, as a community, is converting air-cooled boards into you know, immersion-cooled boards. Before long, I think it's happening now. Boards are getting designed with immersion in mind, which changes the architecture of the board and how, you know, you don't have to worry about air flowing over the board at high volumes and rates. So from our perspective, for what it's worth, you know, there's a bit of a difference between conversion, transition, and retrofit.
Brian Kincaid just had a comment in chat about Wikipedia.
Yeah, I just wanted to support Chad's statement that in the US and on Wikipedia, brownfield is totally related to environmental cleanup. So it's okay to use it because I think there are a lot of places where brownfield is meant to be reworking an existing situation. But we just need to be clear, as Chad said, some people will be confused. So we should not rely only on the brownfield terminology.
Yeah, I thank you for chiming in on that. And I must say, you know, when we start seeing state and federal dollars being made available for energy efficiency, renewable energy type stuff, those politicians know nothing about brownfield IT things. When any politician, I promise you, the only thing they think about from a brownfield perspective is a nasty 5-acre lot in the middle of the city that had some ugly company there pouring chemicals on it for a century. And if we're trying to, and I might contend, as it was addressed in the call yesterday, that we start pursuing more legislative and policymaker types using that retrofit term. We're going to have eyeballs going crazy when we're talking to politicians and lobbyists about brownfield stuff, because they're going to assume that we want to put a data center, actually a green build data center on a spoiled site, which is not at all the intention of what we want to do when we talk about brownfields.
Yeah, and I think brownfields are, I mean, in the end, it's going to be the retrofit is for particular benefits of immersion cooling, right? So it's either going to be they're putting it in for more output, or they're putting it for more efficiency, or they're putting it in for quieter operating environment for their workers, right? Just different reasons that they're doing it, right? And so the brownfield term confuses them, I think. Certain people.
Okay. We have 6 minutes left to our call. Anything what we didn't cover on this call? Anyone to want to rise up something which we missed, or want to have some theme which we can discuss next our call? Please let me know.
Is there training materials for people in terms of piping and calculations and things like that? Are we relying on the facility team to look at that?
You know, Brian, we have advanced cooling facility call where there is a discussion about CDUs, dimensions, and pipings, about delta T, about temperatures, and there is evaluation of different technologies. I mean, backdoor, chip, we call plates and immersion, and there you can learn something. There you can find something, but overall about the dimensioning of the tubes and dry coolers and etc. I don't think it's something special exists.
Yeah, Brian raises a great point. I mean, when this working stream first got kicked off, I remember Allison saying a lot of it should be based on education and communication and awareness as being one of the biggest hurdles. And let's face it, the CIOs and CTOs might be some of our biggest hurdles because they don't want to do anything until everyone else is doing it. So, you know, operational definitions are really important. Language is really important. Training paradigms is important. And, you know, if we have enough citizens out there clamoring, saying that they want, you know, the most efficient data centers possible. And one of the ways to do that, they get the politicians and lobbyists and the policymakers on board, is to educate and train.
Yeah,
Which to your point, David, it's great when it comes to you know, providing examples and having a map that shows where all the installations are. I will agree with, was it Nick that was saying earlier, a lot of our clients are very reluctant to share the news. So it's not easy, but maybe we can come up with some you know, examples of clients without using their names at all or even their geography, and saying, you know, ABC Co had this issue, they had to do this, blah 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 blah. Come up with a couple of standard example case studies that.
Yeah, I want to come back to real experience sharing, and maybe next call we will have a presentation from cloud provider which used immersion cooling for him and the challenges which he had. Martin, can you join to the to the call and say, are you okay to do that next time?
Sorry, me?
Martin, hi.
Hi.
Hi. I want to involve you in the next our meeting and give you time to share your experience which you have with immersion cooling and have a feedback from the first phase, what challenges you have.
Yeah, no, absolutely. If I wasn't sat in the wrong meeting room for the last 50 minutes, I'd have been here. Okay. So yeah, definitely, I'll get the right link next time.
Yes, but is it okay to make it next month?
Yeah, no, definitely, that's fine. That works.
Okay, great. Because it's very important to have the feedback from the user, not because mainly in this call is producers and suppliers and the
you can, definitely a user, I'll say that. By all means, I'll bring whatever you want me to bring to the table.
Yes, so your feedback will be very interesting for all of us.
Okay.
Okay,
fine.
so I will.
One more remark to you, David. As you are aware, I've been doing a lot of publishing with articles on LinkedIn, and the common denominator of all these articles is that I'm addressing specific hurdles for the industry. I'll post a link to the most recent one. I'm currently focusing, I've just started publishing a 5 series. The first one came out yesterday, which is focused on the separation between IT and facility management, which is something that is being challenged by the emergence of liquid cooling, where liquid penetrates the chassis and therefore raises a lot of concerns regarding how far these domains will have to start overlapping. And this is also a significant, more specific hurdle on data center operations and IT operations with immersion or liquid cooling end users for that matter. So I just want to mention this to draw some attention to these articles, but also to ensure that if there's anything in there that deserves further discussion, any discussion to take place on LinkedIn, I'll bring them back in here, like I did with the previous series. But also would love to get feedback from this community and happy to contribute some of these materials as well in this work stream when it comes to potential resolution of strategies.
Sure, Rolf, you accumulate all the knowledge from all these work streams, put that in one concentrated place where all of us can take that and share that. So thank you very much for your contribution. And of course, it takes a lot of time to create that. So it's really...
Yeah, and it's not necessarily stuff that has already been discussed in the communities, right? So the articles that I'm publishing, well, some of them I do collaborate with other workstream leads and project leads, but most of the articles, they're my views, but they are typically highlighting some very specific and also more hidden hurdles or obstacles which are mentioned in the industry. So if there are specific ones that anyone here feels that I should also pay attention to, I'm also happy to take inspiration. If I feel that I can dedicate articles to certain topics, I'll be happy to do it.
Great. So I will stop recording